It started with a whisper from a graveyard. The Kelvana system was dead. Its star had faded to a cold cinder eons ago. We had mapped its corpse and moved on. No one ever looked back at the ghosts of space, until the whisper came. It was not a sound, of course. It was a signal, a tight beam message that broke physics. It traveled faster than light. It carried no distortion across 1,000 light years. It was a perfect, structured, impossible thing. It defied the star science we held as law. The signal was a single, repeating data packet, a ghost knocking on our door. High Command called it an anomaly. The science teams called it a miracle. They spent months trying to decode its meaning. The message was layered in mathematics we barely grasped. It was elegant. It was profound. It spoke of things beyond our reality. But it was the source that truly terrified us. A dead system should be silent. A cold star sends no messages. Something was in Kelvana. Something that waited in the dark, and it wanted us to know it was there. This was not a random cosmic fluke. This was an invitation, or maybe it was a warning. When the top minds of 17 worlds failed to agree, the duty fell to a single person. That person was you. Your mission was simple. Go there. Find the source. Do not engage. Just look. They gave you the Starship Wanderer. She was the newest Explorer-class vessel. A lone wolf designed for impossible journeys. She was fast, she was quiet, and she was entirely yours. The Wanderer became your whole world, a gleaming shell of metal and light against the void. Your only companion was the ship's dry wit AI. It called itself Casey, a little touch of home from the engineers. You spent months in the sterile quiet of the cockpit. The star charts flowed around you like a river of diamonds. You watched galaxies be born and die, all from the lonely comfort of your command chair. This was the life of an explorer. Long periods of nothing, punctuated by moments of everything. Casey would sometimes break the silence. It would ask you about Earth, about rain, about the feeling of grass. It had never known these things. It only knew the cold perfection of its own code. It made for strange conversation, but you appreciated the effort. It was a reminder that you were not entirely alone out here. Your journey was uneventful for the most part, just the endless, beautiful, terrifying emptiness of space. Then you crossed the Kelvana threshold. The ship's sensors screamed. The void here was different. It felt heavy. It felt ancient, like you had just stepped into a forgotten tomb. And you were not welcome. You found it on the third day. A colossal structure orbiting the dead star. It was the size of a small moon, a perfect six-sided shape of unknown material. It was black, so black it seemed to drink the light from the stars. It was a ghost, a silent, sleeping giant in the endless night. The structure was completely inert, no power signatures, no emissions, no heat. By all our metrics, it did not exist. It was a hole in the fabric of space, a scar left by something immense. The Wanderer circled it for days. Casey ran every scan imaginable. The results were always the same. Nothing. The machine was a ghost, a perfect, silent puzzle. You felt a strange pull toward it, a sense of awe mixed with a deep, primal fear. What kind of beings could build on such a scale? And where had they gone? The surface was smooth, unbroken. Not a single mark marred its perfect geometry. It looked less like a machine and more like a work of art, a monument to a lost and powerful race. Then, after 72 hours of silent observation, it changed. A section of the impossibly black surface began to shimmer. Light bloomed where there was none before. It was a soft, inviting iridescence, a stark contrast to the oppressive darkness of the structure. It was a doorway, a massive, swirling portal of light. Protocol was clear. You were to observe only. But this was beyond observation. This was a direct invitation, a challenge. The doorway pulsed with a gentle rhythm, like a slow, sleeping heartbeat. Casey advised against it. Every protocol in the book screamed at you to turn back, to report your findings and let the fleets handle it. But you knew they would never understand. They would see it as a threat. They would send warships. They would try to break it. Or worse, they would ignore it. Let this mystery fade back into the darkness. You could not let that happen. This was the greatest discovery in human history. It was a moment that would redefine everything we thought we knew. You had to know what was on the other side. Your hand trembled as you disengaged the safety locks. You were going against every order, every rule. This was your choice alone. The consequences would be yours to bear. The little wanderer felt very small as it approached the colossal gate. The light from the portal washed over your ship. It felt warm. It felt welcoming. You took a deep breath, and you plunged into the unknown. The transition was seamless. One moment you were in the cold void of space. The next, you were floating in an endless silver expanse. The portal closed behind you. You were inside the great machine. The chamber was immense. It stretched on for what seemed like forever. And it was filled with whispers. Holographic echoes drifted through the silver mist. They were ghosts of a truly ancient race. They were titans, beings of immense size and graceful power. They moved with a purpose you could not comprehend. Their forms were elegant, slender, and tall. They glowed with an internal light. You were a child in the presence of gods. You watched them work. You watched them build universes in the silver mist. They shaped stars with their thoughts. They painted galaxies with their hands. They were masters of creation. For a time, you forgot your own mission. You were mesmerized by the silent, beautiful ballet of the giants. They were a people who knew the secrets of the cosmos. But as you drifted deeper, the echoes began to change. The peaceful creators were replaced by worried scholars. The ballet of creation became a frantic search for answers. They were afraid. The titans, the builders of worlds, were afraid of something. They pointed to the star charts in their holographic displays. They pointed to a darkness that was spreading, a shadow that was consuming everything it touched. You found the final record in the heart of the chamber. It was a single, towering echo. A giant who stood alone. Its face was etched with a sorrow that transcended time. It raised a hand not to create, but to warn. The hologram flickered, showing you a vision, a prophecy of what was to come. It showed you the enemy. It was a swarm, a devastating tide of darkness that swept through galaxies. It devoured stars. It consumed worlds. It left nothing but silence and dust in its wake. The giants had fought it. They had used their immense power to hold it back. But they had failed. The swarm was relentless. It was inevitable. The last giant looked at you. Its eyes held a silent plea, a warning left for whoever might find this place. Do not wake the shadow. But it was too late. Your presence within the machine had acted as a key, a beacon in the silent dark. You had woken something up. A low hum vibrated through the chamber. The silver mist began to curdle. It turned a sickly, bruised purple. The whispers of the giants faded. They were replaced by a new sound, a wet, chitinous clicking. You felt it before you saw it, a cold spot in the chamber, a presence that was utterly alien. It was formless, a parasitic thing that moved through the shadows of the great machine. Casey's sensors went haywire. It could not get a lock on the creature. It was like trying to track a ghost, a very, very hungry ghost. Your humor was a thin shield against the rising fear. The clicking grew louder. It echoed from all around you. The thing was hunting. It was testing the air. It was tasting your scent. Then you saw it. A flicker of movement in the corner of your eye. A ripple in the silver mist. It was fast. Impossibly fast. It moved with a predatory grace that sent a chill down your spine. You fired a warning shot from the Wanderer's point defense cannons. The energy bolt sizzled through the mist and passed right through the creature. It had no effect. The thing did not even seem to notice. It just kept coming. The clicking turned into a high-pitched chittering. It was the sound of a predator closing in for the kill. You were no longer the explorer. You were the prey. Your weapons were useless. The energy blasts that could cripple a battlecruiser passed through the entity like smoke. It was not entirely in our dimension. It flickered in and out of phase. A quantum nightmare made real. The chittering grew more intense. It was a sound that scraped against your sanity. You could feel the crew's morale plummeting even though you were the only one here. It was a phantom feeling, a human instinct. You were a crew of one, and your morale was definitely crumbling. The creature was a formless horror, a shadow with too many legs. It skittered across the walls of the chamber. It ignored the laws of gravity. It was a parasite that had infested the ghost machine. It was drawn to the life force of your ship. It was drawn to you. Casey's voice was strained. Its logical processors were struggling to cope. My analysis is inconclusive. The entity does not conform to known biological or physical models. You could have told it that. You quipped back, "Thanks, Casey." Any other blindingly obvious facts for me? The AI did not reply. It was busy running trillions of failed simulations. The futility of your situation was a heavy weight. You had come seeking knowledge. Instead, you had found a monster from the dawn of time. A creature that the mighty giants themselves could not defeat. What hope did a single human in a tiny ship have? Desperation was a cold companion, but it was also a powerful motivator. If weapons did not work, you needed a new approach. You had to understand the machine, the great silent structure that housed this monster. The giants had built it for a reason. It was not just a tomb. It was not just a library. It had a purpose. You pushed the Wanderer deeper into the machine, away from the chittering horror that hunted you. You hoped it was a temporary solution. You needed time. You needed answers. The architecture changed as you flew deeper. The vast, open chambers gave way to tight, winding corridors. The silver mist grew thicker. It clung to the hull of your ship like static. This was the heart of the machine, the core, and at its very center you found it. A new chamber, smaller than the others. But it felt infinitely more important. This was the control room, the nexus of the entire moon-sized artifact. In the center of the room floated a single pulsating crystal. It glowed with an inner fire, a power that you could feel resonating in your bones. This was the source of the machine's energy, a power beyond your wildest comprehension, the key to everything. As you approached the crystal, a new figure appeared. It was not a holographic echo. This was solid, real. It coalesced from the silver mist itself. It was tall and slender like the giants, but it was ancient. Its form was gnarled, like the root of an old tree. It was the last caretaker, the machine's final living guardian. It spoke, its voice a whisper in your mind. You are not of the shadow. You are new. Its name, it explained, was not a word. It was a concept, a feeling. The closest your human tongue could come was the elder one's. The commas were important, a pause for reverence, a breath for the weight of its age. The elder ones had been sleeping, waiting for someone to come who could hear the machine's song. It told you of the war, of the great enemy. The swarm, the parasitic entities you had encountered were just scouts, the grubs of a much larger horror. The elder ones had been the commander of the giant's fleets. It had seen galaxies burn. It had watched its people fall. The great machine was their final act of defiance, a fortress, a sanctuary, and a weapon. The elder ones was the last survivor. It had merged its consciousness with the machine. It became its guardian, its will. It had slept for untold millennia, waiting for a mind strong enough to wield the machine's true power. It looked at you, or rather, it looked into you. It saw your fear, your courage, your foolish, stubborn hope. The shadow fears the light, it whispered in your mind. But this machine does not create light. It creates something else. The elder ones raised a hand. The silver mist in the chamber swirled around you. It coalesced. It formed shimmering droplets that hung in the air like impossible jewels. This is the essence of creation, the elder's voice echoed. The lifeblood of the cosmos. We called it the quantum dew, a secret energy that connects all things. The dew pulsed with a soft, internal light. It was beautiful, and it felt powerful. It was the raw material of reality itself, the building block of stars and souls. The elder ones explained that the swarm could not consume it. The dew was anathema to them. It was a poison to their parasitic nature. But to those who could control it, it was a tool of infinite possibility. The giants had tried to weaponize it, but their minds, for all their power, were too rigid. They were builders, not fighters. They could not shape the dew into a blade. Their thoughts were of creation, not destruction. Their failure had cost them everything. The elder ones had waited, hoping for a race with a different kind of mind, a mind that was chaotic, unpredictable, a mind that could dream of both hope and war, a human mind. The dew responds to will, the elder explained, to imagination. You must learn to shape it. Your thoughts must become your weapon. The machine will amplify your will. But the shape of the blade must be your own. You looked at the shimmering droplets. You looked at your own hands. The idea was insane. To fight a cosmic horror with the power of your own thoughts. It was the stuff of legends, not science. But you were long past the point of science. You were in a world of ghosts and monsters. A world where the impossible was the only thing left. You had to try. You had to believe. You reached out with your mind. You focused on the dew. You tried to give it form, to shape it into something solid, something powerful. The first attempts were clumsy. You tried to imagine a shield. The dew swirled and then dissolved into nothing. You tried to form a spear. It wavered and collapsed like a half-formed dream. Your mind was a storm of fear and doubt. The elder ones was patient. Clear your thoughts, it whispered. Do not force it. Guide it. See the shape in your mind. Believe in its reality. You took a deep breath. You closed your eyes. You pushed away the fear, the doubt, You thought of home. You thought of the green hills of Earth, the strength of an old oak tree, the unyielding power of the ocean. You channeled these feelings, this certainty. You opened your mind to the dew. You did not command it. You asked it. You guided it. Slowly, hesitantly, the quantum dew began to respond. It swirled around your hand. It solidified. It formed a blade of pure, shimmering light. It felt solid, real. It hummed with a power that resonated deep within your soul. You had done it. You had created a weapon from thought, a blade of pure will. A joke surfaced in your exhausted mind. You finally had a thought sword, the ultimate keyboard warrior. The chittering returned. Louder this time, more aggressive. The parasitic scout you had encountered was not alone. It had called for reinforcements. The sickly purple light bled back into the chamber. Dozens of the shadow creatures skittered into view. They were a tide of clicking, twitching horrors. Their hunger was a palpable force in the room. But you were no longer afraid. You held a weapon they could not comprehend. You slashed the thought blade through the air. It cut through the nearest creature without resistance. The shadow entity screamed, a silent, psychic shriek that tore at your mind. It dissolved into black dust. The other creatures recoiled. They hesitated. They could feel the power of the dew. They could feel their own mortality. Then, a new horror unfolded. The individual parasites stopped their advance. They turned toward each other. They began to merge, to melt together into a single, writhing mass of shadow and chitin. The clicking and chittering fused into a single, deafening roar. It was a hive mind, the true swarm, a being of pure, collective hunger. The thing that stood before you was no longer a pack of predators. It was a god of consumption, a towering monstrosity of writhing limbs and countless, hungry mouths. It filled the chamber with its grotesque bulk. The psychic pressure it exerted was immense. It was a telepathic shout that screamed of annihilation. It showed you images of dead worlds, of dying stars. It showed you the end of everything. The Elder One's voice was grim. This is the true form of the enemy, the Gestalt consciousness of the swarm. It has come for the heart of the machine. The thought blade in your hand felt small, insignificant against such a foe. Your own will felt like a candle against a hurricane. Doubt crept back in. How could you possibly fight this living apocalypse? The swarm lunged. Its attack was not physical. It was a wave of pure psychic despair. It washed over you. It showed you your own failures, your deepest fears. It tried to break your will, to extinguish the tiny flame of your hope. For a moment, it almost succeeded. The thought blade flickered. It threatened to dissolve. But then you remembered the giants, their silent, sorrowful plea. You remembered the Elder Ones, its lonely vigil. You were not just fighting for yourself. You were fighting for them, for every world the swarm had devoured, for every future it sought to erase. Your will was not just your own. It was the will of all who had stood against the darkness. The machine is yours to command. The Elder's voice cut through the despair. Do not hold back. Channel its full power. Become the storm. You understood. The thought blade was not enough. You needed more. You needed everything. You reached out with your mind, not just to the dew in the chamber, but to the entire moon-sized artifact, to the heart of the great machine. You opened the floodgates. The power that flowed into you was terrifying. It was the energy of a dying star, the creative force of a billion giant souls. The quantum dew erupted from the walls. It flooded the chamber in a tidal wave of incandescent light. You were no longer just shaping it. You were it. Your consciousness merged with the machine. You became the weapon. You were a being of pure will and cosmic fire. The swarm recoiled from your newfound power. Its psychic assault shattered against your mental shields. You raised a hand made of starlight and thought. And you unleashed the great cleansing. It was not a blast of energy. It was a wave of pure, unadulterated reality. A command for the universe to heal itself. The quantum dew washed over the swarm. It was not a violent process. It was a quiet, absolute erasure. The swarm did not scream. It did not fight. It simply ceased to be. Its parasitic nature was unwound. Its dark consciousness was dissolved. The very concept of its existence was deleted from the fabric of space and time. The chamber was silent. The sickly purple light was gone. Only the soft, silver glow of the dew remained. The power receded. You were yourself again, standing in the quiet control room. The thought blade in your hand faded away. You were exhausted, drained to the very core of your being. But you were alive. The elder ones regarded you with something akin to awe. The prophecy is fulfilled. A new guardian has risen. The great machine was now yours. Its immense power was at your command. The swarm was gone from this place. But you knew this was just one battle in a much larger war. The darkness was still out there. The elder ones confirmed your fears. There are others, endless swarms drifting between the galaxies. They will be drawn to the light of life. They will always hunger. Your mission had changed. You were no longer an explorer. You were a protector, a sentinel. The Wanderer was no longer just a ship. It was the chariot of a guardian. Your small crew of one now held a power that could shatter worlds or save them. The responsibility was terrifying. The burden was immense. But as you looked out from the heart of the ancient machine, you did not feel alone. You felt a sense of purpose, a clarity you had never known. The whispers of the giants were gone, but their legacy remained in you, in the power you now wielded. The long watch against the coming night had begun, and you were ready. The universe was vast and full of terrors, but it was also full of wonders, and now it had a new defender. The story of humanity was no longer confined to a single, tiny planet. It was written in the stars, and you were its newest author.